Welcome to today's Emunah Minute. Today we observe Asara b'Teves, the 10th of Teves, a fast day which commemorates the siege that Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Bavel, laid to Yerushalayim thousands of years ago, a siege that ultimately leads to the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. And in the Slichos that we recited this morning, there's a very moving paragraph towards the end. We say, Amru, l'chu nechalim, the nations of the world said, let's go and destroy the Jewish people. V'nashbisa zichram, let's obliterate their memory. And in the rest of that paragraph, we say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please defend us. Please, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, take your vengeance out upon those who sought our destruction. And the paragraph ends in such a fascinating way. It says, and have their hopes disgrace them, Yisu ashivram, kemasem shalim, ve'avoshu misivram, ki ish chalom cholem shlosha salei chori. And let their dreams become like the dream of the man who dreamt about the 3 baskets of bread. Who's the man who dreamt about the 3 baskets of bread? So, of course, this is a reference to the story in Bereshis that we read not so long ago. The story of the baker and the butler who were incarcerated alongside Yosef, and each of them had a dream. Each of them had a dream. And remember again, so we see the baker ultimately is executed. So we say, let the dreams of the nations of the world, they dream of our destruction, they dream of our obliteration. Let their dreams turn out like the baker's dream. The baker also had a dream about 3 baskets of bread, and ultimately at the end of 3 days he was hanged. His life came to an end. Let their dreams end up in the same way. You know, it struck me, Rav Elchanan Wasserman Hashem Yikom Damo has a beautiful commentary on those dreams. He says, you know, Yosef was incarcerated with 2 people. He was incarcerated with the butler and the baker, and they both had very similar dreams. The butler dreams about the fact that there are 3 vines, and he's squeezing the grapes into the cup of Paro, into the cup of Pharaoh. And the baker has a dream, and he has 3 baskets on his head, and the birds are eating from the baskets. And Yosef interprets the dreams, and he tells the butler, in 3 days, you are going to be restored to your post as butler. The going out and the squeezing of the grapes represents the idea that in 3 days, you're going to once again be Paro's wine steward. And to the baker, he says the 3 baskets represent 3 days. The birds eating off your head represents that in 3 days from now, you will be executed. You'll be hanged, and the birds, unfortunately, will be eating the flesh off your body. And Rav Elchanan Wasserman says, how did Yosef know how to interpret the dreams differently? How did he know? In other words, if you think about it, the dreams are very similar. They both have the numerical, right? They both have 3, right? Three clusters of grape, 3 vines, 3 baskets. And yet, again, for the butler, his dream is interpreted as a restoration to his post. He's going to be restored to his former glory, to his former position. Everything is going to be great. And yet to the baker, his dream represented execution. Rav Elchanan Wasserman explains so beautifully. He says there's a fundamental difference between the 2 dreams. You see, in the wine steward's dream, in the butler's dream, he's active. He's squeezing the grapes. In the baker's dream, he's passive. He's sitting there with 3 baskets on his head, and the birds are eating off of the baskets. The butler is doing something, he's squeezing the grapes. The baker is passive, doing nothing. And Rav Elchanan Wasserman says something so beautiful. He says, Yosef saw in the butler's dream the activity represented life, and in the baker's dream the passivity represented death. Wherein lies the difference between life and death, says Rav Elchanan Wasserman Hashem Yikom Damo, is in dynamic activity. Life is all about dynamic activity. Life is about accomplishment. Do you know what the scariest part of death is? It's not the cessation of life. We believe in an afterlife. We believe in Olam Haba. We believe in Gan Eden. We believe that where we go after life in this world is finished is so much more beautiful, so much more special. So what's the great fear of death? What's the great sadness of death? Because when we die, we lose the opportunity to accomplish. When we die, we lose the opportunity to engage in dynamic spiritual activity. When we die, we become passive. So Yosef HaTzadik understood that in the butler's dream where he was doing something, that represented he was going to live. And in the baker's dream where he was totally passive, represented that his life was going to come to an end. And on this day of Asara b'Teves, when we mourn the beginning of the end, because the siege around Yerushalayim was the beginning of the end of the Beis HaMikdash, But on a day when we mourn that which we have lost, we must also take stock of what we have. We have life. And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us the gift of life, He expects us to do something with it. We say to HaKadosh Baruch